Dome A, at the highest point in Antarctica, is the coldest, highest, and most isolated place on the planet. The ice there reaches almost 3.2 kilometers in thickness, exerting pressure capable of destroying ordinary machinery, which is why deep drilling has always been rare. Even so, China maintains the Kunlun station there. Since 2009, Kunlun has hosted ice core drilling projects, but many details have only been released in fragmented form. The strange thing is not what exists in Dome A, but what doesn't. There are no volcanoes, geological activity, or known mineral resources. Under the Antarctic Treaty, extraction is prohibited, so why drill so deep? Radar systems used on the continent sometimes detect unusual reflections under the ice, signals that often indicate something solid. In one case, operators reported a smooth, curved return, unlike natural ice layers. When the drill bit hit a cavity, the atmosphere changed. The silence ended. Officially, CHINARE, the state-run program that has managed Chinese missions since 2009, says it only works with climate, atmosphere, and astronomy, areas favored by the dry, rarefied air of Dome A. These projects are well documented. What doesn't appear in reports is any plan for drilling beyond these studies. Attention increased when a small team was reportedly sent to Kunlun at the end of the Antarctic winter, a time avoided because of the extreme cold, which can drop below 73 degrees Celsius, and the near impossibility of access. Sending people during this period involves high risk. According to internal records that circulated online, the team used high-powered radar systems better suited for locating cavities or solid structures than normal layers of ice. In the initial scans, the technicians suspected a calibration error. A reflection appeared that was too smooth, curved, and symmetrical to be natural. Backup systems confirmed the same result. To top it all off, sensors recorded a thermal anomaly. The surrounding ice was several degrees warmer than the immediate environment, something difficult to explain in one of the coldest places on Earth. Dome A has no volcanoes, no geothermal vents, and no known heat sources beneath the ice. That heat shouldn't be there. The situation worsened when a leaked technical note described the reflection as too clean to be natural, an expression that quickly spread through forums before disappearing. If accurate, this raises an uncomfortable question. Why would a climate research station quietly deploy underground sensing technology more common in archaeology or military surveys? The moment the drill crossed a critical depth, something changed. Sensors registered a sudden drop in pressure, and the drill head began to shake violently. The engineers recognized the signal immediately. It was what happened when solid material gave way to an empty space. A hollow cavity had been drilled. In other parts of the world, this discovery might not be shocking. In Greenland and Iceland, ancient volcanic systems left behind ice caves and lava-formed chambers beneath glaciers. But Dome A is different. Geological records show no volcanic activity there for millions of years. There is no magma, no geological faults, nothing that should carve such a deep void beneath the Antarctic ice. As drilling slowed, data from internal scanners painted an even stranger picture. The cavity neither narrowed nor fractured like natural ice formations. Its walls appeared smooth and uniformly curved, with a homogeneous reflectivity that suggested a single continuous surface. Nature rarely works with this kind of precision. Then came the air. When the pressure equalized, the gas escaped upwards through the hole. Those nearby later described a strong metallic smell mixed with ozone, the kind of odor associated with compressed environments or electrical discharge. This did not match the profile of trapped ancient air bubbles normally found in polar ice cores. An engineer, speaking in a private message that would later circulate online, described the sound echoing through the drill shaft. He said it did not behave like that of an open ice chamber. It sounded like noise bouncing inside a hollow metal space. The temperature readings added another layer of concern. The instruments showed that the cavity was several degrees warmer than the surrounding ice. In a place where surface temperatures already tested the limits of survival, even a small increase mattered. Heat meant energy. Either something inside had released heat in the past, or something was still doing so. At that point, visibility was still limited. No cameras had been downloaded. No direct images existed. But the team no longer believed they were dealing with a natural feature of Antarctica. They hadn't seen the structure yet. They didn't need to. The data alone indicated that the cavity didn't belong there. So the question became inevitable. Was this void shaped by forces of nature that we don't yet understand? Or was it evidence of something built long before humans arrived on the ice? When the probe's camera was finally lowered into the cavity, the transmission went silent. What appeared on the monitor looked neither like ice nor stone. The surface beneath was dark and shiny, almost like glass, but it reflected light with the sharp intensity of polished metal. The engineers adjusted the exposure, anticipating excessive reflection or distortion. The image remained the same. There were no seams, joints, layered structures, natural rock fractures, ice formations, veins, or bubbles. Even man-made alloys show welds, stress lines, or assembly marks. This surface showed none of that. It curved smoothly in all directions, as if it had been molded in a single movement, and not constructed piece by piece. Another detail immediately caught the eye. Despite surrounding temperatures being close to 51 degrees Celsius, the surface was completely free of ice. The ice refused to adhere to it. This suggested residual heat or a coating that repelled contact at a molecular level. Both explanations raised more questions than answers. As the camera rotated, patterns emerged. Fine geometric markings spread across the surface in repeating sequences. They weren't letters, they weren't numbers. They resembled fractal shapes, curving and reappearing at regular intervals, precise but unknown. No one on the team could associate them with any known scientific notation. Next came a cutting test. A low-power laser was activated, the same type used to engrave hardened metals during field repairs. The beam hit the surface and dispersed without leaving a mark. The power was increased. Still, nothing. There was no burning, no indentation, not even discoloration. For comparison, technicians cited titanium carbide, one of the hardest known man-made materials, used in the aerospace industry and in armor. Even this material shows a measurable response under concentrated energy. This surface didn't show up. It completely exceeded standard hardness scales. Then the instruments reacted. The magnetometer embedded in the camera's housing began to register faint oscillations, not static interference or background noise. The readings pulsed gently, rising and falling at a steady pace, as if the structure itself were emitting a signal. At that moment, the assumption of a passive object crumbled. If it wasn't rock and it wasn't some conventional metal, then what exactly had been buried beneath the Antarctic ice? And, more importantly, why did it seem to be awakening? Magnetic irregularities are not uncommon in Antarctica. Solar storms, buried rock layers, and even the slow movement of ice can cause brief disturbances. But these events are chaotic and inconsistent. What the instruments in Dome began to record was different. As the drilling equipment approached the buried structure, the signal strengthened. At first, it was almost imperceptible, nearly lost in the background noise. Then, a clear pattern emerged. Every 30 seconds, the readings went up and down. Perfectly. The cycle never varied, not even for a fraction of a second. Geological processes don't behave like that. They fluctuate, they surge and weaken. This signal did neither of those things. An engineer later described it as a pulse, not a wave. To him, it seemed less like random magnetism and more like a heartbeat. Slow, controlled, deliberate. When sensors were lowered directly into the cavity, the effect intensified. The closer the instruments got to the surface, the stronger the signal became, as if the structure were reacting to their presence. This response unsettled the team. Passive objects do not change their behavior when observed. Almost immediately, systems throughout Kunlun Station began to fail. Battery reserves were depleted much faster than anticipated. Radio contact with relay aircraft became unstable and then dropped completely. Data storage units crashed due to corrupted files, consistent with electromagnetic interference. These systems were designed to operate independently. They shouldn't fail together. Then the signal changed. Tracking equipment showed that the pulse was no longer spreading uniformly through the surrounding ice. Instead, it narrowed. The emissions aligned in a single direction and projected upward, piercing the ice layer and rising into the sky above Dome A. Whatever was generating the signal was no longer contained. It was transmitting outward. That detail mattered. Antarctica is one of the quietest electromagnetic environments on Earth. This silence is the reason astronomers have placed sensitive instruments there. A focused, repetitive signal rising from beneath the ice stood out strikingly. No announcement was made. No emergency warning. Official station reports continued as usual. But internally, the question had already shifted. It was no longer about what the object was. It was about who or what it might be trying to reach. The first sign that the structure was not alone came from an ice core drilled a few meters from the cavity. Inside the frozen layers, researchers discovered filaments thinner than a human hair. Under magnification, they behaved neither like minerals nor like fibers. They had a faint metallic sheen, but bent and curved as if they were flexible. When the sample was slowly thawed inside a sealed chamber, the atmosphere changed. The filaments began to move, not floating, not expanding. They turned toward the nearest heat source and moved forward with deliberate motion. Chemistry could explain fusion or reaction. Directional movement could not. A researcher approached to observe. Within a few hours, he reported trembling hands and difficulty maintaining his balance. His speech became slow. Neurological tests showed erratic responses that did not correspond to fatigue, cold exposure, or altitude sickness. Although Dome A is a known high-risk zone, the symptoms did not fit any expected pattern. A portable sensor revealed something worse. His body was emitting weak but measurable electromagnetic oscillations. The pattern matched the pulse detected under the ice. The same interval, the same rise and fall. Whatever was buried beneath was no longer contained. The remaining filament samples became impossible to handle. Instruments malfunctioned when they came near them. Monitoring devices shut down without warning, as if overwhelmed by interference. Attempts to sterilize or isolate the material were ineffective. The filaments remained intact. After the station was evacuated, fragments of internal footage briefly appeared online. In one of the clips, the affected researcher looks at the camera. As the light changes, small reflective dots appear to move beneath the surface of his eyes, like metallic dust suspended in liquid. The video cuts off moments later. No official explanation followed. No medical report was released. An internal memo later listed the samples as contaminated and destroyed, but that document disappeared within a few days. What remained was a question that no one wanted to record. Were these filaments a form of ancient life preserved under the ice, or something completely different? A system designed to activate when the structure was disturbed. Because if they could move, adapt, and integrate, then the drilling had uncovered more than just a relic. It may have triggered something that should have remained sealed. The situation quickly deteriorated. As the drilling progressed, the pressure inside the cavity changed unexpectedly. The well walls became unstable, and a section of the shaft collapsed without warning. Equipment was crushed in seconds. 2 team members were trapped before any rescue protocol could begin. In Dome A, there is no room for error. Recovery was not possible. Around the same time, Kunlun Station began to malfunction. Parts of the power grid went out. Backup systems flickered unpredictably. Satellite communications dissolved into static and then disappeared completely. For those still inside, it no longer seemed like an accident. It seemed as if the environment itself had turned against them. With no way to secure their place, the remaining people made a choice. They collected everything they could carry. Radar records, camera images, audio recordings taken directly from monitoring equipment. Whatever was under the ice, they believed the data mattered more than the station. As evacuation preparations began, a short video was sent over a narrowband link. It showed only fragments. A black metallic surface curving out of the field of vision. Fractal markings capturing the light. The same constant pulse, now audible, mechanical, and precise. In the background, something moved in the darkness. The video spread quickly. Then it disappeared. Within hours, the links were dead. Cached pages failed. Even mirror sites returned errors. Soon after, public records linked to Chinare's activities that day were removed from official portals, as if the event had never occurred. No press release followed. Kunlun Station was listed as temporarily inactive due to technical difficulties. But the story didn't end there. According to later reports, one surviving member completely avoided the network. He carried offline copies of the radar data and videos on physical media. It is claimed that this media was taken out of China's borders before the authorities could intervene. If this is true, then the evidence still exists. And this raises a disturbing question. Who ordered the Kunlun records to be erased, and what were they so determined to hide under Dome A? In the days following the collapse, China's official response was tightly controlled. Authorities described the incident at Kunlun Station as a routine equipment malfunction caused by the extreme Antarctic conditions. There was no mention of abnormal drilling results, no recognition of unusual signals, and no detailed explanation for the partial shutdown of the station. Public records were minimal, and subsequent questions went unanswered. What drew attention was the reaction outside of China. Other nations with permanent programs in Antarctica refused to comment, even as their own regional monitoring systems continued to detect magnetic interference over East Antarctica. No government issued a statement. The disturbances were not brief spikes linked to solar activity. The pulses continued for days. Outside of official channels, amateur radio operators in the southern hemisphere began picking up faint signals on normally quiet frequencies. The interval was always the same, 30 seconds, exactly as under Dome A. Recordings were shared online, but many disappeared without explanation. The strangest thing is that the signal got stronger after the station collapsed. With less background noise, the pulse appeared cleaner and more defined. It didn't spread randomly. It maintained a fixed direction, as if it were pointing somewhere. Despite this, Dome A remained closed due to the rules of the Antarctic Treaty. No new missions were authorized. Then a final anonymous report emerged. The pulse supposedly had fractal patterns, similar to the marks seen on the buried structure. If true, it's not noise. It's something organized. The final picture is unsettling. A metal structure under kilometers of ice. A chamber where there should be no emptiness. A perfect signal every 30 seconds. Strange material reacting to human contact. A station that collapsed, and data that vanished. And yet, the signal continues. Nothing in Dome A naturally explains this. There are no volcanoes, no geothermal heat. Everything points to intention, not chance. Perhaps it was never a relic, but a mechanism designed to sleep, until awakened by human curiosity. So the question remains, what did China drill under Dome A? And why has the world remained silent since then?